Okay. Whew. Good evening, everybody. All of you. Now, if everybody was sitting right up in here, you could really see this presentation better, I know. But maybe you have better eyes than I do. So we're continuing with our study on the restorations of the Old Testament. God's people have been known to waffle, to go in and out of His good grace. We come and go because we are human. But there are many times that God had a plan and He found a way to bring His people back, and that's what I'm referring to as the restorations of the Old Testament. We talked about the first one after Adam, and that whole first about 1,600 years when people became so evil that that's all they thought about. There was a restoration through Noah. Noah was a righteous man, and so God brought everything back to normal, back to His way through Noah to start with, and they started over. And that's where we've been kind of parked here for a little while, but there's just a whole lot of stuff in the first part of Genesis. So turn to Genesis, the 10th chapter, and we're going to hopefully pick up where I left off last time. If I can find I don't want to go there. All right. Right about here. And I was reminded this evening, I just got a text from my daughter who lives in the Nashville area, and it made me think of that little saying that I cried because I had no shoes until I saw the little boy that had no feet. We're bemoaning that we've had to stay in. The snow's kept us housebound, and so my daughter Stacy, I'd texted her earlier, or tried to call her, and she said, we've been out of our house for 5 days. They've had a real bad ice storm in Nashville, and they have no power. I think I heard yesterday 500,000 people in the Nashville area with no power. And she said they managed to go back to her house today for just a little bit. They saw one pipe that had burst, but it was 28 degrees in their house. So, it could be worse, couldn't it? We're going to take up here with this, if I can get back on my computer. We're talking about Noah's children, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. How that they have left the ark, and now then we're going to look at how they spread out. We talked about it just a little bit last time. In regard to the Tower of Babel, let me see. All right, I'll just start with this frame. We're starting the section that's going to get us down to Abraham. And that's where God's going to have His next restoration. In This is primarily in Genesis 10 and 11, chapters 10 and 11. Abraham came through the lineage of Noah's son Shem, Genesis 11:1. And there's a parallel passage to Genesis 11 and 10 and 11, and that's in 1 Chronicles 1. And so it has the same listing of all the people. And so Shem was the one through whom Abraham came, and eventually the 12 tribes, Jacob, Israel, and down through, and we know that eventually down to Christ. But Shem had I've listed there, the sons of Shem, and it lists the first generally. Shem had Arpachshad, Shelah, Eber, and then Peleg was not Shem's son, but he was a grandson. And so you can read these in, if you want to go over and look, I've listed some of them on another frame. Noah and his family, Genesis 11 and 2, Noah and his family began traveling after they left the ark. I say south because that's where they ended up, in the way down south of where the ark was, and settled in the plains of Shinar in southern Mesopotamia. This frame has two predominant people in it, Peleg and Nimrod, and we're going to talk about both of those a little more. Those are two important names that we'll see much more about. In let's see. I got to try to keep this up with that. Genesis 10, 8 through 11, Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Jehovah. Wherefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Jehovah, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land he went forth to Assyria, and builded Nineveh, and Rehoboth, and Calah, and Resen. Between Nineveh and Calah, the same is the great city. So Nimrod was, as I was reading commentaries on this, some say Nimrod was the first empire builder that we read about. And that's what Nimrod had. He had an empire. He was over Babel. This is where it says his kingdom was Babel, the beginning of his kingdom. We have to understand that those people, when one man was very strong, and this may have been one of the references to giants, some of these men were not physically giants, but they were giants in the sense that they had a great following. They were leaders. They were able to do and conquer, do whatever they wanted to do. And throughout history, we've read history, and throughout history, you take one man that is strong and powerful, and he can get a following, and those people follow him. He gets stronger and stronger, and we've seen throughout history. The Babylonians with Nebuchadnezzar. God blessed Nebuchadnezzar so that he was able to conquer the whole world at that time. God did that for him, for God's purpose, so that there would be a people, someone there to lead or keep the people, keep his remnant, and enable them finally to get back to Israel. That's what God was doing throughout. And we talked about the scheme, God's scheme of redeeming man over and over again. His scheme comes to light. Well, Nimrod was one of those men that was strong, a leader. He reminds me maybe of Joshua. Joshua was, there's no telling how powerful, physically powerful Joshua was. He commanded the respect of all the men at that time. They wouldn't go against him. The same was with Moses. Moses was obviously, even though he was a meek man, Moses undoubtedly was a powerful man physically. And it says when he was on the mountain and God, he was going to be taken away, and God had him go away and he died. Well, he was still as viral as he had ever been. His eyesight was good. He was strong. So God was with these men. Nimrod was that kind of leader. He was an empire builder. He left the area that he was in. Let me see if I can find a. Okay, he left this area here, where says you see Nimrod is right here. This is Shinar, between the two rivers, Euphrates and Tigris, and that's where he was. That's where he started his empire, and undoubtedly, I mean, we would just have to naturally think that he was perhaps at the root of the building of this great tower, the Tower of Babel. So all these things were happening and coming about, and Nimrod went on then to Nineveh. Nineveh was, we know about Nineveh, don't we? Who was stationed at Nineveh? Who was there? Nineveh was right up in this area. It was on the river, on the Euphrates River, but it was right in here. Who was there? Where do we hear about Nineveh? What do we hear? Who? Jonah. It took a long time for Jonah to it said a 3 day, he walked for 3 days, and that was to get into the city. And perhaps this is what, let's see, this is what, when, what was it? I lost my place here on my, there you go. It says that out of the land he went forth to Assyria and builded Nineveh, and then it names a couple other places that he built, and evidently they were very close together, between between Nineveh and Calah. So you had perhaps that whole area was known as Nineveh, even though it had these other smaller places. These are things that we can see as we carry on through. Let me go back here. And of course, then we touched on this last time. Genesis 11:7. God said, "Come, let us go down there, confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." And we talked about that last time, that this is, we want to put our characteristics into God. We want to make Him be able to go down there. We want to make Him see things with His eyes. We want to make Him have powerful hands, the hand of God, and so forth. I mentioned that word. It's a big old long word that people have come up with, anthropomorphism, which simply means we give God human characteristics when we can't do that. God doesn't have human characteristics. But God allows us to think of Him in that way because that's the only way we can think, is in terms that we know. God can think anyway. Yeah, we've gone over there. In regard to chapter 10 and 11, this is something that I read. Christians should not ignore this chapter, the fundamental teachings of which is that all the nations of earth are descended from a single ancestor, and that, therefore, all the people of the earth are of one blood. To the Greeks in Athens, Paul explained this, the God that they worshipped ignorantly. God is trying to help. So in Acts 17, here's what the way Paul explained it to the Athenians on Mars Hill. The God that made the world and all therein, He being Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is He served by man's hands, as though He needed anything, seeing He Himself giveth to all life and breath and all things. And He made of one every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth. Now here's where he's making reference back to that. He made of one every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth. Who did He make that? Who was that one that he was referring to here? You could go back to Adam, but it ultimately, in what we've been talking about, it was Noah. It was Adam to start with, then it filtered down, then it was Noah. And He made all nations of one, every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth. Man didn't dwell on all the face of the earth until the sons of Noah spread out. Then they began to cover the earth. And so that's very plainly, that's what Paul is telling the Athenians. Having determined their appointed seasons and the bounds of their habitations, that they should seek God, if haply they might feel after Him and find Him, though He is not far from each one of us. For in Him we live and move and have our being. There's a very distinct, very succinct explanation of the God that they worshiped ignorantly. And he was able to take that and say, here, let me explain that God to you that you worship ignorantly. He made everything back in that passage in the 17th chapter of Acts. And so here he goes through this and he talks about that. So we see even evidence in the New Testament that all the things that all the people in the world came from right there. Came from Noah, his 3 sons, and then they began to spread out. The Tower of Babel was the point at which they began to spread. It didn't happen all at once because there were not that many yet, but there were many families, different families, and they would obviously they found within their groups families, people that they could communicate with them, and this helped them to band up and make groups and be able to travel off. Let me see here. I started here I showed this map last time. So I did a little more work on this map to kind of show where the descendants of Noah went after they got off the ark, after they went to Shinar, went to Babel. They began to spread out. The descendants of Shem, and I know I put them up here. And if you want to turn to Genesis 10:21, Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, and these are the sons of Arpachshad. Peleg, you see, he was a grandson of, a great-grandson actually, of Elam. His father was a son, so he was a grandson of Shem. Joktan, Peleg and Joktan were two sons of Eber, and here are the descendants of Joktan. One of his grandsons had this many descendants. I think there's 13 of them there if I counted right. But you continue on. You got Lud and Aram. These are the five sons. I highlighted them. The five sons of Shem, and then others. This is by no means all the descendants. They just kept rolling off and going. So over here we have.
Do you know if the phrase, if you were to say anti-Semite, does that word Semite come from descendants of Shem? Do you know?
I don't think so. Semite is a term for Israelites. That's the anti-Semite is anti-Jew.
But what is the word like? How do you get Jew out of Semite? Where does that? Do you have any idea how that?
No, it would come through probably through the Hebrew some way. Do you have any idea there, Larry? No. Okay. I'll try to see about that. But here's we're going to look at Shem. Down here we have a thing that shows descendants of Shem, and they're in these boxes that have a dark border around them. And we see them here. Here's Elam, settled down in this area. Now remember, this is the Persian Gulf. So this would be what is now Iran, appears Iraq. You got Arabia here. You keep going over this way, and you've got India, and they settled way over to the eastern coast of India. You got Arpachshad settled in this. He didn't go very far. His people settled in this area. Asher here, and this is where Nimrod went up this way through Asher and built Nineveh. Nineveh's somewhere up here. So Nimrod kind of got away from his people. They traveled away from him. You got I can't read some of these. Mash, Madai, M-A-D-A-I, Madai here. Aram, way over here. This is what would be in the Damascus area, Syria in there. So you can see far and wide they're starting to spread out. This isn't that large of an area. We know that the Middle East is only a small. This would be Africa down in here. You got the Red Sea. Now then, let's look at the descendants of Japheth. You got Gomer. You got Magog and Madai. Remember I said a Madai up here? That's got a red border around it. I didn't see that. Javan, and then you've got these are the sons of Javan. You got Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. These are the descendants of Japheth. And you go start looking around where they went. Here's Tubal over here. So the descendants of Japheth kind of went up into the northern, what is Asia Minor, Turkey, Asia Minor, on over into Europe. That's where these people went. And anytime you have a comment, question, speak up, please. Yeah.
On that Semitic, just a quick look here. It does relate to Shem, and it's really more the language root that
Okay.
has similar type of language, and it's a very, it includes the Arabs, Jews, and many of those people in that Middle East area. So it's a very broad term.
Yeah. But today it's come down to mean against Jews.
Well, they are of that group.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. They're not the only ones.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now then, we have some more down in this box down here. You have, this is the Red Sea. This is down at the tip of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden. If you keep going down this way, and you get down here, you have Ophir, you have Havilah. These are the descendants of Arpachshad. So you get the idea. We're going to go to the next frame and see the descendants of Ham. Okay, in Genesis 10:6 and following, you have the descendants of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, Canaan. Those are the 4 sons of Ham that are mentioned. Now then, those sons then had, Cush begat Seba, and then he had other children, and Nimrod came from that family, from Cush. And then you had Mizraim. He begat Ludum, and then he had these other sons here. This is interesting that this one, Casluhim, was where the Philistines came from. The Philistines they were primarily in this area right over here along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and they were always a thorn in the flesh for the Israelites. Put, I saw over here, here's where the historians believe that the people of Put came over here, and there's some evidence in the scriptures about where some of these went, especially Canaan. So Canaan begat Sidon, Heth, Jebusite, Amorite, Girgashite. These are all descendants of Sidon, who are the grandchildren of Canaan. Hivite, Archite, Sinite, Arvadite, so forth. In Genesis 10:19, it kind of gives a description of where the Canaanites settled. And the border of the Canaanite was from Sidon, which is up in this area in the north, from Sidon as thou goest toward Gerar, which would have been up in here, unto Gaza, which was down here, Gaza, which was down in here, as thou goest toward Sodom and Gomorrah, which is believed to be right in here in the Jordan Valley area, somewhere around the Dead Sea. You can't really see it that well because it's so small on this map. But I thought that was interesting. What do we know about Sodom and Gomorrah? They were just evil, evil people. They were homosexuals who would do any kind of evil, and this is where the scriptures say that the Canaanites went toward Gerar unto Gaza as thou goest toward Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's that people. Rod, you asked a couple of weeks ago about how the Canaanites, how they got there. Was it, and the people were evil, but they didn't necessarily come directly from Cain, because Cain was way back in the very beginning. But his seed, those people were all evil. And I showed that where is it? There, 35. You remember this chart, timeline from Adam to Abraham. And the time period, all of this, whoops, there I go again. All this was evil. It came, of course, he doesn't even put Cain on here. It starts out with Seth. And then all these were the children of Seth, and they came down here. But the people of Cain were probably the instigators of that evil type life, but it spread out. You know, evil gathers people to it. Those who are evil, throughout history and throughout our literature, throughout our movies, throughout all of that, we have depicted good people that are taken in by the evil people. You know, the evil people are able to suck them in. Well, what is it about evil? It's just, it's dangerous. People hear things, and it's a walk on the wild side, and they wonder about this, and it seems to be so good. It seems to be so full of so much pleasure. And that's the kind of thing that went on. And when Ham came out, and Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they lived 100 years before the flood. So they were being influenced by all that evil. Noah was righteous, but it doesn't say that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were righteous. And because of the incident with Ham, going in, seeing his father's nakedness, the curse that came from that regarding his Ham's son Canaan, Ham obviously had the evil in him, and it began to spread then, and Ham's people, it was just it's still that way, and people still are drawn to what's naughty, drawn to what's forbidden. That's liable to get anybody. Everybody has to be on guard against that. Peter says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, seeks whom he may devour. He's walking around, stalking around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. That's what evil is, because that's what the devil is. He's evil. And let's see. So this is just continually interesting to point out here. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get past this. Next time, we're going to move on. We've already talked about this. We've talked about that, the curse of Canaan, the people that settled in Canaan that were always going to reap the curse that was put on Canaan by Noah, that he would always be a servant's servant to his brothers. And we'll see that. And we'll start here on 30. We're going to talk about Peleg and the day that the earth was divided. We'll go into that, and I'll talk about a couple of different theories about that particular thing. Okay, so y'all do some reading too. I know where Joe stands. I kind of stand there too, but there are other possibilities. We got to look at both of them basically. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight.